So you're in Georgia, you're in Atlanta. I'm sure you
Hmm.
saw the Mike Bobo hire as offensive coordinator. That hit me like just if I'm a Georgia fan, a big thud. It just didn't do anything exciting for me. He's pro style. He hasn't had great success. What did you think of the Mike Bobo hires offensive coordinator?
Well, around here in Georgia, you guys they look at it different. I
Okay.
think. I
Okay.
think they look at it more than one way. Yeah, it may not have been a big time hire, but it's one of their own. Mike Bobo is a Georgia guy. He went to Thomas County Central High School down in South Georgia, where they do a lot of recruiting from Peach County and Colquitt and those places. They got a lot of good football players out of the area. He's from that area, and he's a teammate of their head coach. So
Yeah.
I think that kind of helps with that. I guess that's the way you spin it for them. Is he a good coach? I think he is. I don't know if I could put as much stock in him being an offensive coordinator at the University of South Carolina that says he can't make it. I don't know if that's the case. He did go out to Colorado State and he was the head coach there, and they had some pretty good offenses. They had a guy who actually won the Blitnikoff Award, so he knows how to throw the ball around the football field and those type of things. I don't think he just had I don't think he's a head coach. That offensive coordinator part of it, though, I think that can help him out. I think he'll be okay there. I
So,
like Mike Bobo. I've been knowing him ever since we were 18. Well, I was 15 years old. So
oh, really?
yeah, we
Okay.
went to a few football camps together. I was a quarterback in high school, so I went to a lot of the same camps he went to: Georgia Southern, Georgia Tech, University of Georgia, Furman. You name it, those type of things.
So, how much do you think he'll be asked to recruit at Georgia? Because a lot of times the coordinators don't recruit a lot, especially offensive coordinators, because they'll just recruit the quarterback. Do you
Hmm.
think, given his ties in Georgia, maybe he'll be asked to recruit a little bit more?
I think he may be asked to come in and how to take care of the guys in the South Georgia area, but maybe not as the initial guy, but someone could try to help come close the deal. He has a lot of respect from down in that area. I mean, but like I said, he's from there. He's a quarterback that played at the University of Georgia, and he's from that area. He's done a good job in recruiting there in the past, so I wouldn't see him not being able to be a part of that recruiting staff there.
Let me ask you, as a former safety, when you see Josh Heupel's offense versus a more traditional offense, and yes, Mike Bobo can throw it around, but I think you would agree it's a little bit more traditional.
Hmm.
What are the challenges in facing both as opposed to the other?
Well, I think even though we have a wide open offense, we spread the field very wide. We ran the ball way more than we passed it last year,
It's
and we
very
had a Cup award winner. So I think it's just concepts and how you get the ball into your playmakers' hands and those type of things, and just coming up with different schemes for different defenses now. Before you just we have a system. This is our system, and that's all we're gonna do. You got to fit in our system. I think now is you got to tailor your play calling to your talent. And I think Josh has done a really good job of doing so. With Mike Bobo, they've had the top five running backs and quarterbacks and receivers and offensive linemen for the last so many years. I mean, over the last 15 years, you can look at their program and say they've been ranked in the top five, the top 10 every other year, if not every year. So the talent pool that he has and what they're trying to get done is to be more smash mouth football, kind of like an Alabama back, a few years ago, that kind of style. But you can also be able to throw the ball all over the field. So I think he can. It's both. It's hard either way. I mean, you just got to figure out ways to do your job to stop them.
and it helps if you have really good players like Georgia.
Absolutely. Like I said, when you've ranked in the top 10 for the last 15 years in recruiting, you have a talent pool to go with.
It's a Fred Friday. Click the like button, and that'll help us open it up to more viewers. We appreciate that. We've got all kinds of great things coming up with Fred that we're looking forward to. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. What are you thinking? Portions of the program brought to you by Craft Treats. Go to Craft Treats. They've got the CBD infused dog treats, the chill pills that are great for your pet when it comes to anxiety or it comes to digestive issues or arthritis. Go to Craft Treats, use the promo code off the hook, the promo code off the hook. Caleb?
Fred, I know why you like Mike Bobo. It's because your defenses dominated him when he played you guys in the late mid-90s. You just have fond memories of that, don't you?
Have very fond memories of those. Absolutely. 5-0 against those Bulldogs.
You're as bad, Fred, as when Rick Pitino said that Tennessee definitely should keep Wade Houston because he's a great coach. Listen, when the opposite, I'm just telling you, when the opposition says you're doing a great job and you are fantastic, then that means that there's a weakness there. I'm just saying.
You remember Nick Saban saying that about our last head coach?
Yes.
Yes.
As soon as he said it, I was like, uh-oh.
Oh,
He said it about
Ruh-roh.
Billy.
We in trouble.
when you get the dreaded vote of confidence, like, boy, that Jim Donnan, he's one heck of a coach. It's terrible. I mean, you said, I like this guy. He's nice on a personal level. I got to know him, and he's a great hire by Georgia while you're wearing an orange shirt.
Yeah. You know, there's a reason that Michael Jordan hates the Pistons to this day. It's because he couldn't beat him for a few years.
Yeah.
But he probably loves Karl Malone and John Stockton.
He was happy when they got rid of Richard Dentley.
Yeah.
Adrian Dentley, rather. I'm sorry. Adrian Dentley.
Yeah. So, you know, it's funny. You brought something up that I feel like it's weird because, you know, we always feel like that, you know, when you played in the 90s, it was very common. Obviously, Tennessee did this. It was very common for a coaching staff to be led by a bunch of former players that played for the school. You know, they hire within the family. But it seemed like college football in the 2000s moved away from that. Tennessee certainly has. Is it odd to you that Georgia, like you said, they're going back to what seemed like a thing in the 90s and before, where they're staying within the family with all of their hires?
You know, I think the move for Mike Bobo is to try to figure out, can we have a good program, and they just won a national championship, 2 back-to-backs, and it's on the upward trajectory. What they did at Alabama was every offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator out there won a national championship usually got another job somewhere else as a head coach. So if you're Mike Bobo, you got to be thinking, all right, if I can steady this ship and help us get to the college football playoffs and national championship again in the next 3 or 4 years, I have another opportunity to be a head coach somewhere. Now, I don't know if that's his logic or not, but after winning 2 national championships, no one's ever done it 3 times in a row. I don't know if that's going to be something that's going to happen. I don't think that's the case. I hope I'm not shooting myself and sticking my foot in my mouth by saying so. But I think that national championship run may stop at 2, and eventually they can be in another national championship game, maybe. Could possibly win another one in, you know, year 4 or 5 or something like that. I think they'll always be a part of the picture because of how they recruit and the head coach that they do have. And they have a stockpile of talent, so that gives you an opportunity to be in the top 5 every other year, those type of things, or every year. But I think if you're Mike Bobo, you're thinking, I come here, win a few SEC championships as an offensive coordinator, I have an opportunity to be another head coach at a later date.
What were your thoughts on Stetson Bennett? He was kind of a lightning rod. He was a little bit of a smart aleck, and he played really well, super clutch, but it seemed like they always wanted to replace him. They wanted a guy that was more talented each and every offseason. What did you think of Stetson Bennett in general?
I mean, he got the job done.
He did.
You can't really, a guy who got the job done 2 times in a row. Now you won 2 back-to-back national championships, and you went undefeated in the SEC. I have nothing bad to say about him, He did his job. He did what even though he was, a 5th or 6th year senior, he didn't determine that. You know what I mean? He did the job. He got his job done. He was the leader of that team. Offensively, he did a great job. I don't see him, like I said, talked about this earlier a few weeks ago. I don't see him being a high draft pick or anything. I doubt that's the case. But I think for college football, he did a really good job of doing the job he needed to do. Hitting the wide open guys. You have that much talent around you and you got that much time, you better deliver. And he did.
Mike again is with DawgNation, and he covers the heck out of that beat. So I don't know that there's even anybody else that you want to follow when it comes to Georgia football coverage. But curious your thoughts about the Mike Bobo hire and how Georgia fans are accepting that at this point. What did you think of the hire, and what's the reaction been?
Well, on the surface, it depends on your depth of knowledge and where you're at on this. I mean, Todd Monken leaving, there's nobody that's going to say that's a good thing for Georgia. I mean, he's been the preeminent offensive coordinator. The numbers are remarkable. Now, I don't want to qualify too much because I do think he's fantastic, but they have had probably the best defense in the country the last 3 years. It helps when you're getting the ball at your own 40-yard line. It helps when you're rarely playing from behind. It helps when you're getting 3 and outs and your quarterback can get into a rhythm. So he's been in an ideal situation with a lot of talent. It helps when you've got Brock Bowers. It helps when you've got George Pickens. It helps when you've got a running back like Kenny Mack and you've got a first-round left tackle that doesn't give up. There's been a lot. So that's the qualifier that I put before this, is that all the pieces are in place for Georgia to win championships with whoever the offensive coordinator is, provided, they don't beat themselves and they understand how to design an offense around personnel. Now, Mike Bobo, on the surface, you go, well, now, wait a minute. This guy was fired from Auburn. Him and Harsin never really were together, and I don't know how much that offense was his in qualifying that. He was fired from South Carolina. Well, Will Muschamp only had like one guy off that offense drafted. So I'm not going to judge Mike Bobo off 2020 and 2021. Now I'm going to sell him to you. And I'm in the living room, and the quarterback says, but Coach Bobo, Saban tells me, not Saban, somebody else, it's never Saban. Coach so-and-so from Alabama tells me that this is what you did at Auburn in 2021, and this is what you did at South Carolina in 2020. Okay, here's where I come back if I'm Bobo. Son, do you know who coached the SEC's all-time leading passer, Aaron Murray? Yeah, that was me. Son, do you know who coached the SEC's all-time winningest quarterback, David Green? Yeah, that's Mike Bobo. Do you know who coached the highest scoring offense in Georgia history? No, it wasn't last year. It was 2014, Mike Bobo. Do you know who coached the number one overall quarterback who received the richest contract in NFL history and is a recent Super Bowl winner? Matthew Stafford? Yeah, that's Mike Bobo. Do you know who has the trust and continuity of Kirby Smart, who he's been best friends with since they were teammates at Georgia, who understands all the terminology? We don't have to change any terminology in this Georgia offense from one year to the next. Bobo knows all the person. Dave, when you go down the list, it's hard to think that they wouldn't hire Mike Bobo. This is kind of like a chess move. When Bobo was brought on last year as an analyst, yes, his son Drew is there. Probably not a future NFL offensive lineman, but good enough to be a scholarship player. But much like the Muschamp hire, right? When Lanning left, Muschamp just clicked right in, right? And now Monken leaves, and here's Bobo, already been on staff for a year, already knows the personnel, actually had one of these quarterbacks, Gunnar Stockton, committed to him at South Carolina. It just makes sense. So when you say, well, who's a hotter name out there? Here's another. Let me go down this road for you. Someone say, well, yeah, it's too bad they couldn't hire a hot shot like Saban used to hire. Okay, like who are we talking about? Well, I like Lane Kiffin. Let's not get hooked started on him today. Well, how about Steve Sarkisian? What about Steve Sarkisian? Oh, that's a great example. All gas and no brakes Steve Sarkisian at Texas now, right? Yeah, him. Oh, you mean the guy that lost to TCU at home 17-10, that scored one touchdown on that TCU team that Georgia put 65 on? That offensive genius? That's the guy. So my point is this. I think sometimes we're all guilty of giving coordinators too much credit or too much blame when they're not all dealing with the same personnel. Your personnel has everything to do with your production. I mean, Hendon Hooker had a lot to do with Josh Heupel's. Now, vice versa, Heupel did a great job with Hendon Hooker, but what a going away present from Jeremy Pruitt to have signed Hendon Hooker, Dave.
That's true, but Let me play the other side. There has to be a young guy who's somewhere that Georgia could pull away, who's a little bit more forward thinking than Mike Bobo. Mike Bobo, you would agree, is more of a traditional offensive coach as opposed to, let's say, with Josh Heupel or Alex Golesh or those guys.
Well, to your point, what you're reflecting on is true, because in 2014 and his last year there, in 2013 and 2012, you're right. But Dave, when you got Todd Gurley, I don't know how forward thinking you really want to be.
Well, that's fair.
When you got a backfield with Todd Gurley, Nick Chubb, and Sony Michel, I don't know that you really want to throw it all over the park. Now, the question that you're asking is a good one, because the question is, how will Mike Bobo do, or will Mike Bobo be successful calling plays out of a spread? We're seeing more spread now. You're going to see pro style. Bobo does a lot at the line of scrimmage, which Kirby likes. He wants a quarterback that can fly the jet at the line of scrimmage and make all the adjustments, because if you're good at it, the defense can really be helpless, right? Like, I remember talking to a Baylor safety a couple years ago at the Combine. It was about Jake Fromm, though. I said, what makes Jake Fromm so good? Because Jake was a really clean, proficient quarter, didn't get sacked a lot, didn't throw many interceptions. He said, well, here's the problem. When you face a pro-style offense and the quarterback comes to the line of scrimmage and they see what we're in, if they like what we're in, they're snapping the ball and they're going. They got the look they want. They got the match. If they don't like what we're in, they change the play, and before the defense can react, they've shifted into the right play. Now, why doesn't everybody do it? Well, because not everybody has weapons at every position that can win it in every matchup one-on-one. But when you've got that talent disparity that Georgia has over most of the opponents, you can go, yeah, let's go ahead and throw to receiver A instead of B or C in front of D, because they're all future pros. It's not like you're, going away from one great receiver to go to a trashy one. That now, maybe some programs don't have the luxury of the talent, but when you've got the talent and you've got the ability to change the plays of the line, and that's what we have to see if Mike Bobo can do, and do it with the personnel he has. That's the other thing, Dave. They no longer have Darnell Washington. And even though Darnell, you might say, well, he only caught 28 passes. I thought Brock Bowers was the one. Yes, he did. But he's 6'7" and 285 pounds. And when you go double tight end with a guy like that, he creates problems, because yes, he can catch the ball, but he can also block anybody you've got. So all of a sudden now, that double tight end formation, you're not going to have a weapon like that. The next guy they put out there in double tight ain't going to be able to block everybody. So how does Bobo use the guys? He brought in Dominic Lovett, the slot from Missouri. Last year, they didn't use the slot. They went double tight end. Now you're going to see slot. How does he use his personnel, and how does he play call, and how does he prepare? Does he see the game like Monken did? And that's the question. We don't really know, because I don't think Auburn is a very good barometer, since it was really Brian Harson's offense. And I really don't think South Carolina had the talent to really compete with anybody. And when he was at Colorado State as a head coach, it might as well have been on Mars. So to your point, we haven't really seen him do it with the kind of personnel and the talent that he's going to have around him. Now, you say there might be a young guy out there that can do it. Well, maybe, but if he came in, could he keep the terminology the same? How long would it take him to learn the personnel? And would Kirby Smart trust him? Because you and I both know, having covered the Philip Fulmer years, that it takes a lot for these head coaches to trust their coordinator. Head coaches can get in the way. Now, wait a minute, you're calling what? No, we're running it. No, you can't have, in an ideal situation, you can't have that. So that's why I think it had to be Bobo, the Kirby trust, the knowledge of the personnel. You don't have to change the terminology. And I do think, based on his history at Georgia, he's a Georgia man. He ain't looking to step ladder, not looking to go to the next school. His son's going to be there a few years. It just makes sense for those reasons.